We will call the RPO board meeting to order in our different location today. And in a minute, I'm going to introduce Tim Holloman, who's the director of the Water and Sewer Authority, just to welcome us to this facility. But thank you all for being here, and we'll start out with our roll call.
Frank Williams.
Here.
Mike Forte.
Here.
Mark Martin. Rich Alt.
Here.
Jeff Weinkoff.
Here.
Sylvester Ballard. Laverne Coleman.
Here.
Scott Floyd. Terry Mann.
Here.
Gary Keaton. Gary Keaton, I believe I see your phone number in the online. But I'm gonna keep going. Jerry Groves.
Here.
Hugh Kennedy. William Ravenbart.
Yes, here.
Olivia Dawson. Jason Wells. Brady Hunt. Landon Zimmer.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. As far as alternates go, we'll have Mayor Alt in place of Mr. Martin, unless if he's not here. And same case for Mr. Zimmer as our Board of Transportation.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. We'll now move on to our invocation and pledge of allegiance, and Commissioner Coleman is going to lead our invocation, and Commissioner Forte our pledge.
Let's pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for whether you've given us and the mercy and grace you've shown us so far, dear Lord God. I pray that you watch over us, guide us, and direct us. Give us the knowledge and wisdom to conduct the business that we're sent here to do. Pray for mercy and grace. Thank you for all you do. I ask these things in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Put your hand over your heart if you're a veteran. Salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're in much better hands than us. They supply pens.
Hey, that's a great segue. Obviously, we are in a different location today because when we rescheduled this meeting, there was already something booked in the meeting room where we normally meet. And we were actually in this room, and Sam asked me, where should we have our next meeting? And it took me a minute and a cup of coffee, and I'm like, why not right here? They've got the technology, and he also runs the technology at the Water and Sewer Authority meeting, so he is familiar with the setup. So why go somewhere that he's not familiar with? But for those of you who are familiar with the Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer Authority, I'm going to introduce our executive director of that group. I'm on that board, Tim Holloman. And Tim, if you could just welcome us and tell the folks a little bit about the authority.
We'd like to welcome you to our building this morning. We've been here since 2006. Before that, we were in the Murchison building downtown. We first started pumping water in 1984, but it already was incorporated back in 1970. We have two plants. We have the Kings Bluff plant, which supplies water to Brunswick County, raw water, Brunswick County, Hanover, CFUA, Wilmington, Pender, and two industries on 421. So that was the plant in 1984, 1986. It was upgraded in 2009. Right now, we have 38 miles of pipeline. In 2026, that will be 48 miles. And we'll have one 48-inch that runs 24 miles and one 54-inch that runs 24 miles. So we'll have redundancy because we can tell you about later another time about problems we've had because without redundancy, a fix on that line is about $3 million. Once we're redundant, it will be between $200,000 and $500,000 because it won't be an emergency anymore. And then we won't have to worry about water getting to Wilmington, Brunswick County, et cetera. So I can tell you about that all day long, but that's a brief summary of that. We're working on some projects right now. I was telling someone earlier, trying to replace that walkway that's been there about 40 years and also adding a fourth pump, which is about $5 million. Those are huge pumps, 1,600 horsepower. Yeah, that's right, pumps. So that's interesting. If you ever want to take a tour of the plant, let me know. We'll take it down there and show it. We're happy to have you here. restroom facilities right here. There's one down the hall in case this one's full. We have sodas and drinks as well if you like that. And like I said, I'd be happy at any time to go to any of your organizations and do a more in-depth talk. And like I said, if you want to learn more about the authority, I'll do that later.
Thank you, Tim. We appreciate your openness and, just a little more background on that. Obviously there's this authority and then there's the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority. And I have run across people who don't know the difference, including some elected officials who refer to one when they're really talking about the other one. This body pumps raw water down the river so that Brunswick County, CFPUA, and Pender County can then treat it and sell it to customers. So that's in a nutshell what they do. I was not on the board my first few years as a commissioner, but when Scott Phillips went off the board, I moved onto this board, and actually now he's back on it as a citizen member. And this is, not the most exciting stuff you talk about, but it's stuff that affects people. If that pipe busts, New Hanover County might be completely out of water. And the same with Pender.
Is this well water that he's pumping up?
They pump it out of the river way up in Bladen County. Yeah, this is where all the river water. Yeah. I won't bore you with any more on that, but I did want you to know who was hosting us. Moving on to equally exciting information, I will read the ethics, awareness, and conflict of interest statement that we have to read at the beginning of each meeting. In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every committee member to avoid conflicts of interest. Does any committee member have any known conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the committee today? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the matter involved. Does anyone know of a conflict? And as always, if we get to something and a light bulb goes off, just bring it up at that. Any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Move for approval.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Commissioner Coleman first. We'll go with that. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Okay, real quick, I want to clarify two things. I don't have the words right on here, but when we get to our item number 8, after I present the material, we'll need to open and close the public hearing.
Okay.
That was in the meeting notice, and I just didn't hit the right word.
Okay. Thank you. I will do that when we get rid of those.
And I also want to acknowledge that Mr. Mark Martin did join us online. So for the roll call vote, I will call his name, but you should absolutely stay at the table. Okay, so I have a motion from Commissioner Forte and a second from Commissioner Coleman. I'll do the roll call now. Frank Williams,
Yes.
Mike Forte,
Aye.
Mark Martin,
Aye.
Jeff Weinkoff,
Aye.
Laverne Coleman,
Yes.
Terry Mann,
Aye.
Gary Keaton, Gary Groves,
Aye.
William Ravenbart,
Aye.
Landon Zimmer.
Yes.
Motion carries, and now move on to approval of the minutes, which were included in the packet. Are there any changes, or do we have a motion? Motion by Mayor Mann. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mayor Weinkoff. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do our roll call.
Frank Williams,
Aye.
Mike Forte,
Aye.
Mark Martin,
Aye.
Jeff Weinkoff,
Aye.
Laverne Coleman,
Yes.
Terry Mann,
Yes.
Gary Keaton. Mary Keaton, if that is your phone number, just letting you know that I can't hear you. Gary Groves,
Aye.
William Ravenbart,
Aye.
Landon Zimmer.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Now move on to public comment. Anybody in the room who's not on the board have anything to say? Not everybody at once. How about online or any submitted electronically?
I don't see any online and I did not receive any ahead of time.
This may be a quick meeting. We have no scheduled presentations. I'm gonna get sat in that drive-through longer than we're gonna get here. We'll move on to new business, which is our planning work program.
Stand up so I'm not hiding behind here. This is a routine item that comes up each year. Our planning work program is our other name for essentially the RPO budget. A draft of this was included in your February agenda packet. And so it's being brought back to you for approval. Now, I know that what you see here on the slide is one of the most attractive spreadsheets you've ever seen, but it's also a lot of stuff. And so to give you an overview of what you're actually looking at, what you're approving, I'm gonna change the visual. So the planning work program, or the PWP for short, breaks down into 5 main categories what RPO does throughout the year. So the first category on there is data collection. That can be both GIS data, online data, as well as going out and getting traffic counts. I was just in Topsail Beach yesterday morning, pulling up some tube counters, doing some traffic counts for them. It's always fun to get in the road and play Frogger. The next category is a general transportation planning kind of umbrella category. This covers a bulk of RPO's work, from CTPs, comprehensive transportation plans, into prioritization. So preparing project submittals, coordinating with you, the members of the board, and our TCC to determine what we submit and then what we put local points on later in the process. Project development, this is led by the division. Once projects have been funded for various stages, I do try to attend those and be involved as well. And then just a general transportation planning category. This catches everything from regional and statewide committees that I participate on, coordination with other planning organizations. It's kind of my catch-all category. Next is an administration category. So this is handling these PWPs. We have quarterly invoices we send to DOT each month. All the activities that go in preparing your agenda for these meetings, as well as the TCC, handling meeting minutes afterwards. And then again, another general category. This is all your emailing, phone call, program administration fund. The last two, you have a direct cost category. This is where supplies and travel and any training, conferences, things that I would attend, that's what goes in there. And then the last is the indirect. That's our overhead, essentially the cost of running the RPO out of the COG. So that's what the other multicolor spreadsheet shows you. The big number is what our allocation is. And so for this next fiscal year, 25 to 26, $153,000. This is the same allocation that we have in our current fiscal year. This was increased 2 years ago when they made the change to include a local match out of state funds. And for our planning organization, that local match accounts for 15 of the 20%, leaving only 5% local match to be picked up here. This was great for us because it ultimately resulted in an increase in overall funds, but a decrease in the local match required. So we kind of got the best of both worlds with that change. So we're going into our third year of having this allotment each year. So anyway, this was presented to the TCC last Wednesday, and they recommended approval. We sent it to you and then on to the Transportation Planning Division at NCDOT. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions or comments? I appreciate you breaking that down. The spreadsheet did have a lot on it. Trying to put a spreadsheet on a slide is always challenging. Any questions or comments? If not, I guess you said we need to open the public hearing for this, so I will open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak in the public hearing? Not everybody at once. Going once, going twice, we will close the public hearing and request a motion to approve.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Forte and so seconded by Mr. Rivenbark. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do our vote.
Frank Williams,
Yes.
Mike Forte,
Aye.
Mark Martin,
Aye.
Jeff Weinkauf,
Aye.
Laverne Coleman,
Yes.
Terry Mann,
Yes.
Gary Keaton, Gary Groves,
Yes.
William Ravenbark,
Yes.
Zimmer.
Yes.
The motion carries, and before we get into reports and updates, I was officially in the drive-through longer than that took. That's and that's unusual for Chick-fil-A, but that's a whole different soapbox. We'll move on to reports and updates. The first is Sam for the RPO.
Okay, so I have a couple of things to throw your way. What I'm hearing is that Commissioner Williams would like for this to take longer. And so
I'm fine with it being quick.
I'll try to make this as long-winded as possible.
Motion to adjourn.
So first reminder, the State Ethics Commission filing that's due every year. I know I've been bugging you a lot about this past couple months. I believe everyone in this room actually has theirs in. We have one or two still that haven't shown up in the report online. But we're somewhere in the 80%, 85% range of having everybody done. And those are due on Tuesday, but I don't need to say any extra because y'all are all on top of it, so I'll move on.
Can you maybe get me a list of the people who haven't sent them in, and then like with some of those, we may need to reach out to their clerks and make sure they're seeing the emails and recognize the emails for what they are.
Yes, I'll share that with you. And so, you know, when the last round of reminders, which was either early this week or last week, I can't remember off the top of my head, the clerks were included in those reminders, but I'll get that with you.
And if they're, like, I know we've got one new member that I haven't seen in a meeting yet, so we may need to make sure their clerk knows what they're looking at too, so.
The next item is another pretty routine revisions to the 2024 to 2033 STIP. Those are included in your packet. Nothing out of the ordinary. There's one project delay, just needing additional planning and design time. And the other, one of the pages that has several listed items. Those are all safety projects added various locations for rumble strips. So again, those are in your packet. Try to include those with each meeting. Next, again, as a reminder, in your packet is our meeting schedule for the year. Our next meeting is on June 20th. Usually our meetings end up being on the second Friday of the month. That one will be on the third Friday. And I will send, obviously, reminders as we come to that, but just if the pattern feels off, that's why that meeting is a little bit later in the month than normal.
Well, the one in August is also on the third Friday.
We're just gonna
Yeah.
keep you guessing.
And so is the one in October.
Well, I guess we have a new pattern.
Delete this prior statement.
I won't do it. Prioritization updates. So the 2026 to 2035 draft STIP, which is again still in draft form, anticipated to be approved by the Board of Transportation either June or July. That contains the results from the prioritization 7.0 cycle that this group was mostly involved in the summers of 2023 and 2024, which means that the next round will be prioritization 8.0. The work group, that's a combination of NCDOT, a few MPOs, a few RPOs, and a few other representatives. They've been meeting since late last fall and through this spring in preparation for the P 8.0 cycle. That work group should have their final meeting in May, which means by our June meeting, I will have confirmed updates for the schedule and the process for our next round, likely to kick off at the end of the summer, midsummer perhaps. So again, the update now is that the update's on its way. But just wanted you to know that that's on the horizon, so that will be a big item, most likely at our June meeting to prepare for the next round.
And do you think at that point we might know deadlines by which projects need to be submitted and that type of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm expecting to have a full calendar to show us, okay, here's our submittal window, here's the rough scoring timeline when we should get that back. I'm anticipating kind of late summer into the fall of this year being our next window for projects.
Yeah. One thing that might be helpful, I met somebody a while back was complaining about roads to me, and I said, well, if you've got specific projects, submit them. And they said, well, just fix all the roads. And that's not helpful. I need something more specific I can turn in. So maybe if you could put together here, if you're going to submit a project, here's what it needs to, here's what we need to have so it's legitimately able to be passed up and have some relevance. That would be.
Yeah, they could, in town of Walton meeting Monday night, I asked, I said, we're going to have this meeting this week. Is anything you need, Mayor? And he said, well, we need Anderson Road looked at, but said, I didn't know how to present that.
That's a vague statement. That
Yeah.
could, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good.
Depending on how long Anderson Road is, that could
Right.
be anything.
So, is there some kind of paperwork or application that would be helpful for me to fill out and submit?
Maybe a model that says, a model fake project that shows how specific we need it to be. That might be an idea.
Yeah,
I can work on something like that.
Put it on Man Boulevard in Tabor City.
yeah, all right.
That's a great, so I don't forget. Um,
So Mayor Alt,
I just have a question. If you're gonna vote on something on prioritization programs in June, would NC Dot have their budget for the next year by that time?
I don't know that we're voting in June. I think that's the kickoff where we start soliciting projects. It's,
Okay.
yeah, it's probably a year out voting on anything is my guess.
the earliest I would guess that we would be approving our project submittal list, I think would be our October meeting.
Alright, so the budget should be in by then.
And hopefully we'll have at least an estimate of the available funding for this next round.
And maybe since we've got some new members and hopefully some of the ones that even haven't been here yet will be at the next meeting, give us a review at that meeting of what that process looks like what each step is. Here's when we submit projects, here's when we prioritize them, give points, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, we'll combine that with almost to say toolkit sounds too big, but in your case, when you hear from someone else,
Right,
we need this looked at.
right,
Okay, here's step 1, 2, 3.
right. That'd be helpful.
Kind of funnel it and narrow it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So that then we can take it and run with it and flesh it out.
All right, thank you.
And, you know, just as a good example, obviously you deal with this stuff every day, you know, heck, most of the time when I'm in this room, I'm talking about sewer, not roads, and we don't deal with this every day, so dumb it down to elected official language for those of us who aren't engineers.
All right.
I started out as an engineering student, and I did not end up as, and I'm happy about that.
The same boat, actually.
Not what I was qualified or capable of doing.
Yes, I will definitely make that easily digestible. My only note for other items is just another few things. So at the last meeting, we approved a couple of resolutions for some grant applications for NCDOT's Integrated Mobility Division multimodal planning grants. So bicycle plans, pedestrian plans. Those will be due in May. So I'm still working to flesh those out. That was for Burgaw, Chadburn, Tabor City, and Surf City. I believe each of those 4 local boards either have approved resolutions of support for that, or it's on their upcoming agenda. But just wanted to remind you that that's in the work. On a related note, I believe that both Oak Island and Southport, the staff have recently kicked off their planning work because they were awarded the same grant last year. I know talking to the Oak Island planning director, they had an internal staff meeting, I think last week, to get that kicked off. And I also recently spoke with one of the consultants helping Southport with theirs. He was looking for some GIS data to get started. So hopefully there will be some public meetings for both of those in the near future. And then lastly, I know that Nausea's Online will have some CTP reports, but I wanted to give a kind of a separate thing for the Columbus County CTP. That had been stalled for a little while. And we finally got the kind of the base your data updated. And we met with the steering committee earlier this week to review the updated recommendations and make a plan for doing some public workshops or open houses. So the plan right now is that at Columbus County's intergovernmental meeting, their quarterly meeting at the end of this month on the 28th, I will be attending to give a very brief overview of what the Columbus County CTP is and have a few draft maps. And I'm basically going to then kind of sit over in the corner for all of the officials there to come take a look at it if they want. And they'll be scheduling some public open houses, maybe in the June timeframe. That was the result of our hearing committee's discussion on. I think that's as much as I have for my reports. So,
Any questions for Sam on anything? Anybody online have a question?
I have a question.
yes, sir.
This is Mark. I know the public comment for the STIP, I believe the closing date has passed. Do we know if we received any public input?
I can't speak for the divisions. I think a lot of public input would have gone straight to DOT. I did not get any sent straight to me from members of the public.
That might be something that the division can, or maybe the DOT board member online can answer.
I'll speak up. This is Adrienne.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, those are directed really toward the April 4th, I believe was the deadline, and that was directed to the Raleigh through our website and whatnot. We did have a week of an open house and we had a few people come in to speak with us about projects, but it was more related to their property and how it might impact them. There were no direct comments about projects, whether they were for or against anything. Maybe with the other MPOs, there have been different circumstances, but for this one in particular, there have been no questions specifically related to your projects.
I know on the Wilmington MPO, we've gotten a lot of input about one particular project in New Hanover County, and it seems to be a lot for and a lot against. So it just depends on, I think, where they live so far.
Yes, and of
And
course.
how close they are to the project.
And sometimes projects have been in the works for years and they only become on the
Yeah.
public mind
At the very last
at the
possible.
last
moment.
moment, yeah, at the last moment when everything has been dotted and crossed and stamped. And it's okay.
I've never seen that happen.
Yeah, right, I know. As elected officials, I'm sure you're like, this has been going on for 30 years. At any rate.
When I was a little boy.
At any rate, I think it's been positive so far, and I think that the public is aware of what we're doing. So, and if there is anything to report, we can bring that to you next time.
And I think one of the challenges that we deal with and DOT deals with, I'm going to use the 133 bridge project where they're putting in the bridge where the culvert was. For years, everybody screams about fixing 133, but then when you fix 133, they scream about the fact that you're fixing 133 because they have to go 3 miles another way. But there is no other way to do it. If we're going to fix it, you can't really put a temporary bridge through some of that swamp near there. It is what it is. And, sometimes I know I was not a happy camper when this causeway was closed and that project was going on, but it's a whole lot different now and it's a whole lot better now because of that. I was pleasantly surprised at how much of an impact it actually had. I was one of the doubters. I'm like, is this really going to make a difference? But it did. And, sometimes if we want these projects done, we're going to have to deal with the upfront challenges while they're being done or they'll never get done.
Mm.
And that's a challenge. That's an ongoing challenge.
Orange cone is progress.
Also, I've heard that the orange barrel is our official state flower.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Zimmer had
Mr. Zimmer,
No comment. I concur.
we have sufficiently beaten this dead horse now.
No. I think it's, it's important to have public comment and, it's a process. It's just thinking about, military cutoff, but it's been going on for years and just that, it's part of the process. So it's good to get everyone's thoughts.
Editorial statement, that's why we're a republic and not a true democracy, because that there are those of us who are put in these positions to make those decisions, even sometimes when they're not popular, but they're still right. And I'll get off that soapbox now.
But I do want to take my hand off the NC DOT on 211. I don't find myself out at midnight very often, but I found myself out at midnight the other night coming down, and they, because of the amount of construction, moved that big heavy stuff to the nighttime. If it was happening during the daytime, we would never be able to get out. I mean, it is a great project that they're doing and the way they handled it. Yes, you have to slow down. Yes, you have to wait a couple of minutes. But if you did that during the daytime, it would be a total disaster.
Thank you for that comment. Absolutely.
Mr. Martin, did we sufficiently address your public comment question?
So to clarify, we don't have the online public comments to date, but we do anticipate getting those at some point. Is that what I'm hearing?
Those are directed to DOT's Raleigh office. Is that correct? So those are directed to the NCDOT, not to this body. So that you could probably request those from the division, but they're not directed to us or the MPO. They're a DOT function.
Okay. I was just curious, if we received any for our district and what's the feedback loop to review those. Because I know not everyone was able to attend the open house in person for our area, for the Oak Island residents. So they had asked me if there was still an opportunity to provide input, and I was directing them to the online public input link.
Adrian, you said you don't think we've received much about anything in the RPO area, is that correct?
Not in this particular area, but I'm happy to check with our Raleigh office and see if there are, I mean, we can check for the division as a whole
Okay,
and bring back anything that's pertaining to this.
that'd be helpful. So we'll find out.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Martin, if you're talking to someone who still has comment, even though that window has closed, you can direct them to me and I can pass that along. I can't change anything in the draft step. I can help interpret it for anyone who has questions. And if there's something that needs to pass further up the line, that's what I'm here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sir.
Anything else for Sam? If not, do we have anybody from the Porks online or anything that they submitted?
They did not submit anything and I don't see Stephanie online, so nothing from the reports.
How about Perry?
Kat is also not online, so nothing from Perry today.
We'll move on to Division 3. I don't know which of,
It's gonna be myself, Adrian.
I have all your project headings on screen.
Okay, thank you. Great, so, share our report with you all. These are the projects that are in development currently. Wanted to share that, this project for the lighting at the Surf City Bridge, it was just advertised on Wednesday, so we should be looking at bids in beginning of or mid-May and see how that works out. This is let a second time because we couldn't procure the materials before for the lighting, so we brought that back in, waited, and just re-advertised. The next project is currently on schedule. That's the Hampton bypass, the next section. So that'll be exciting. It's going to be let this July. And we currently have Conti on the northern half. We finished military extension. So this will be the section in between those two portions. The next project that's going to be let this year is going to be in October. That's a bridge replacement over on NC 53 over Angola Creek. And everything is on schedule for that. Right-of-way acquisition is complete and it's just on schedule. Moving on to projects that are actually under construction right now. So we provided these updates at the end of March. We do have some updates since then. So
Could you thank you real quick?
of course. Okay. So what I'm going to show you though is each of those 4 projects, there is the map plan that shows you the vicinity of the project, what we are doing along with the project, all the basic information, how we recognize it at DOT as 5021, and that it's, you might know it as the 211 widening. And so thank you for your comments about going out at midnight. I hope everybody's cool. I'm like running out to CVS or something. But we are halfway through that project. As you know, that the project is about a third of the entire cost is just infrastructure. So water, sewer, and the I want to say cable, but that's not what you call it anymore. Fiber optic. Yes, thank you. What I do want to bring to your attention though is that we've been notified that we're anticipating maybe in 2 weeks to switch the traffic from the alternate bridge to the new bridge over Dutchman. Yeah, so Dutchman Creek. So we're making great progress on that, even with all this tropical storm issues that we had in September. So this is the next project. This is the bridge replacement on NC10 on Long Creek. And this is about 46% complete. It is considered that we'll be able to wrap that up in April of next year. We are maintaining the existing structure and adjusting with a new adjacent for bridge for minimal impact for the detour. Just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. And that we're about 46% complete. So that's moving right along. The next project is the Price Creek emergency repairs with fiber optic was resolved. We have sheet piling going down and backfilling. So everything's moving along with that project as well. And then the last project is the bridge over the Sandhill Creek on NC 111 or 133 River Road. That is, a detour was installed. We do have a settlement period where we have to wait until everything kind of settles in the ground. And so if you see nothing going on right there, it'll pick up back in the beginning of May, and that's why. But that's only about 15% complete. These are your resurfacing projects and maintenance. So again, I said that we updated these at the end of March to make sure that we met our timelines, to make sure you had the information. But some of these have been updated. So this is about 80% complete, 80% complete. This has actually moved up to about 60% complete. We've moved forward on that. And this one is about 34% complete, and this remains about 12%, 13% complete. And part of that is because we have open-ended contracts and we let the contractors move around. Mike, I know you asked about this before. It's an open-ended contract. We have a beginning end date, but they are welcome to move around their teams and crews as needed. And they do put out notifications on those roads sometimes, especially when it might impact residential areas, to let them know. And we do receive questions about that and make sure that we get that out to everyone as fast as possible. We do have a map that makes it easier to see if you have a general question. I tell everyone that purpose of a good website is so that you can save a phone call and just check online sometimes. You're always welcome to pass this along to other people as well, so that they feel empowered to find the information themselves and be a good neighbor to one another and help share information.
While you're on that, I think that's a great visual of what areas the RPO covers versus the Wilmington MPO versus GSAT's Grand Strand.
That's correct. This isn't actually updated since there have been changes. So I do need
But it's
to.
close.
Yes, it is very
Yeah.
close. That's true.
And I think a lot of, we cover a lot of territory and get a lot done, with less resources than some of the other groups do. So I just wanted to point that out because that's a big area.
Yes.
And I'll come back to that later in some other comments that I have at the end of the meeting. So
My presentation is complete. You got a question, sir?
I do. How do we get the electrons for that so we can put it on the website?
Oh, I can send it to you. Yeah, be happy to. Make sure Sam can redistribute it to everyone.
any questions? Anybody online have any questions? If not, do we have Division 6 online?
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Bill Hammond. I'm the Corridor Development Engineer for Division 6. Our Division Plan Engineer, Philip Hart, had a schedule conflict, so he asked me to get a report today. Along with me from Division 6 is our Division Engineer, Lee Jernigan, our Deputy Division Engineer, Rob Stone, and our District Engineer, Ken Clark. Our reports in your packet. The first project, R2561CA, it's 43% complete. Completion date is February 2027. Currently, there's utility relocation and interchange ramp grading in progress. The NC-87 bridge construction over Wyman's Creek is ongoing. Next project is R5020B. This is US 701 Madison Street, J.K. Powell Boulevard from Virgil Avenue to 7476. This project's 83% complete with the completion date of 12/25. Comments: the project is functionally complete. Final paving and marking and signing will be complete this spring. Next project, R5819, R5820. This is US 7476 at Chauncey Town Road. Convert an at-grade intersection to an interchange. And then US 7476, 1740 Old Lake Road. Convert an at-grade intersection to an overpass. This project is 79% complete. The estimated completion date is January of 2026. Completed and open to traffic or the interchange at SR 1725 Service Road and the SR 1740 Old Lake Road overpass. In progress is the NC 24 Sandpot Highway, Chauncey Town Road, and Flemington Drive roundabout. Next project is HI 0015. This is US 74 future I-74 from west of NC 214 to west of Water Tank Road. This project's 48% complete, approximately 5 miles from NC 214 to NC 11 was completed prior to seasonal paving limitations. Completion expected in the spring of 25. Next project is BP6 R004. This is bridge number 201 over Lumberton Road, SR 1002 over to Western Prong Creek. This project's 94% complete. Project's basically complete, is open to traffic. They're just basically doing punch list items. And in the future, this project will be removed from report. Next project is the Columbus County Municipal Airport apron expansion. That project's 85% complete. Phase 1 paving was completed. Ongoing work on incidental items, fencing, vegetation, etc. is ongoing. Completion date for this project is January, said 1/25, so they're still working on it. All right, next project, Tabor City, grading, drainage, sidewalk, signal, and pavement markers. This is a new project that there hasn't been any work started. This is a non-LAP carbon reduction funded project, and the department will provide project administration, construction oversight on. Completion date for this project will be February of 2026. The next project is also a new project, HI 00118. This is US 74 from 0.11 miles east of US 701 Business to 0.17 miles west of NC 214. This is a drainage, pavement rehabilitation, and bridge rehabilitation project. Completion date is going to be June of 2027. The next projects on the list are HMIP active projects that we have going on. These are resurfacing projects, widening, installation of striping and pavement markers. And then on the back, we got future projects. I'll be glad to take any questions. Philip Hart's contact information is on the last page of the report. And that completes the report. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Bill. I have a question about project BP6 R008, the upcoming bridge replacement on Needles Eddy Road. That's one I would love to get some more information on that, because one end of that road's in Brunswick County and the other one's in Columbus County, and there are different school systems that have to get through there. So you might have Columbus County school buses having to come all the way into Brunswick County to get back into Columbus County, depending on how that's going to be closed. And also I'm concerned about making sure we communicate with the fire and rescue that serves that, because that could put a lot of extra travel time for one of the rescue squads and fire trucks if they aren't in the loop on that, depending on where the detour goes. So that's something maybe we can schedule an offline talk with some of you guys and myself and Commissioner Coleman from Columbus County on that.
Ken, you're on the line. Is there anything you can add to that?
Yeah, he's exactly right. But now what we do to try to mitigate that is we give the fire departments, school bus garages, everybody involved in travel on those roads plenty of advance notice when we're going to start the project. It is mostly, it's about halfway the Columbus County portion of that road, but we do have some homes beyond that. I don't see it affecting Brunswick County travel at all, as far as school buses and that sort of thing. It'll mainly affect our fire response from Regalwood, as well as our bus route up that way. But we're certainly going to try to encourage for most of this work to be done here in summertime to mitigate the bus situation. But we do give plenty of notice they can go ahead and plan those routes accordingly.
I think, yeah, we need to make sure we get Acme, Delco, Regalwood Fire, and the Northwest Fire Department in the same room, probably, or on the same call to talk about that, and make sure they're both aware of it, so that Northwest could fill in gaps if ADR can't get around there quickly.
Yeah, I need to add Northwest to the list. We definitely communicate with ADR. We'll need to.
And I don't know who handles EMS in Columbus, if it's ADR or who, but maybe get Brunswick County EMS involved in that as well.
ADR, yes, sir.
That's all I've got. Any other questions?
Yeah, Ken, I guess I'd address this to you. I've got one observation and kind of a complaint, and it doesn't have to do with Weigel, but somebody approached me over the weekend about it and said, can you talk to somebody? But, this past week, Weigel in East Columbus played baseball. And this guy must live in a bubble because he didn't realize that the second exit at the lake was not, didn't have a ramp to get to the school anymore. And there's no, that if you're coming, if you're going west, there's a sign that marks the exit for East Columbus High School. But if you're coming from Whiteville, there's no signage. And if somebody misses that, they have to go all the way to Bolton, and it's a 12-mile backtrack. Is there plans to put an exit, East Columbus High School exit on the east side of that? I mean, the west side of that bridge, or, I mean,
No,
how do you determine whether it's necessary or not?
they're just gonna have to learn that one. It's been that way for several months now. We did
Yeah.
have message boards up for several months indicating of that change. I think the message boards have recently come down because we're almost finished with that project, but no, under US 74, it has a different set of signage standards than some of the other roads do. And we really minimize the amount of directional signs that are put on 74. Pretty much what's absolutely necessary is all that goes out there. So honestly, most people drive by GPS, and GPS will take you right where you need to go out there. It's accurate within the GPS system.
Well, their main question was they missed it and they came back and they said, why is there a sign on the east side of the bridge and not a sign on the west side? And I said, I don't know, I'll ask. So, isn't it required for schools, directional signs?
It's required off the, no, not necessarily. We do have directional signs once you get on the ramp that tell you
Yeah.
to East Columbus.
Yeah, they have that, yeah.
Directional signs once you get off of 74, but as far as putting them on 74, there are some restrictions on that.
Okay.
I want to ask you one thing if I could.
Board.
I want to ask you one thing if I could. Like he said, there's about a 5-mile gap between Chauncey Town Road and Bolton. That if you miss that turn there at Chauncey Town Road, you have to go all the way to 211 to make a turnaround to come back. Are there any plans of putting a turnaround or somewhere you can change over and go from east to west? Anywhere in there?
Absolutely not. That's going to be a 70-mile-per-hour freeway. There is a turnaround for emergency purposes, for emergency service personnel. But as far as for general public, absolutely not. They're just going to have to learn their way around.
Just stay on 214 would be all right.
That's an option, yes, sir.
Any other questions? If not, thank you. We'll move on to transportation planning.
Hello. I think Sam gave a better update on Columbus County CTP than I have on the packet. So I'll just move on to Pender County CTP. We are currently working on the draft future highway network. Our last meeting was on March 24th, and our next meeting will be April 28th when we will be finalizing the draft network. And then eventually, we'll be going to Division 3 elected officials and the public for their input into the network as well. Everything else is in your packet. If anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Any questions for Nazia? If not, thank you, Nazia. We'll move on to Integrated Mobility Division. Do we have anybody?
I believe so. I see him on the participant list.
Hi, good morning, y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was invited last time to talk to you all about the multimodal planning grants, and Sam again stole my thunder this time. Talking about Southport and Oak Island, they have officially kicked off. But I wanted to let y'all know that this year's multimodal planning grant application is out and open. And it remains open until May 12th at 5 p.m. So those of you that have municipalities or contacts that are interested in applying for a multimodal planning grant, those are those bicycle pedestrians or multimodal network, which includes transit. They are welcome to apply. And this year we are doing something a little bit different. We are also extending the application for colleges and universities. So those colleges and universities that want to have a bicycle or pedestrian or multimodal network within their campus grounds, they are welcome to apply also. If you all have any additional questions, I can take them now, or you all can email me.
Any questions for Kim? Seeing none, thank you, Kim, and we'll move on to Board of Transportation. Mr. Zimmer, welcome.
Thank you.
Any
No,
updates
no.
you want to share?
No updates.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you participating. Sam, any other reports we need to get to, or is that covering?
No, sir, I think that covers everything I had in mind.
Just, I had a couple of things in my notes. One of my legislators was at a meeting I attended last night. He mentioned that there have been 900 bills filed in the legislature, which means things may get lost in the shuffle. So I think it'd be a good idea to resend our legislative goal resolution to all the key players, if you could do that, just because I about guarantee that it's gotten lost in everything else they're doing. Send it to all of our legislators that represent RPO counties, and also to all the transportation chairs and co-chairs.
Didn't you say there was 900 in the House and 700 in the Senate?
Some maybe so.
Yeah,
A lot.
that's
Yeah.
that's the number.
Either way, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But maybe send it to every member of the transportation committee too, for the House and the Senate. I think that would be useful just to keep it on their radar. And I mentioned this earlier, but if we could just get some way to reach out to the members that are on this committee but haven't participated, especially the new ones, so we can make sure they understand when we meet and why we meet, because they may not have any idea of what they got appointed to.
We gotta make sure we have a quorum so we can do business.
And I've been chair of this committee for 11 years, and I still have to ask questions. So I will guarantee you that people who have never been to these meetings really don't understand what we do. And I think that's coming up on the next prioritization. There are a lot of unincorporated areas and small towns in the RPO area. And I was thinking, take the prioritization 101 presentation that you've done, and maybe we see about trying to do a webinar and invite every local elected official and chamber leader and people like that in that whole area to sit down on a webinar where it's controlled. They can't just interrupt us. And at the end of it, give them instructions on how to submit project ideas and things like that, because we rely a lot on our elected officials, but there's some areas like Waccamaw in Brunswick County that doesn't have an elected official. It's an unincorporated community, but some of the local community leaders there might give us an idea that we would never think of. That could be the best idea we get. And I think especially, an MPO is one thing. Everything is so population density there, but we've got a lot of rural areas that probably don't have any idea how to submit ideas to us. And I also think that would show the other transportation planning bodies just how well we have our act together too. And that especially leading up to prioritization 101, that will basically be prioritization 101 going into prioritization 8.0. Because your average person who's never been to one of these meetings doesn't know what prioritization is. I mean, that's just a fact. And I think we owe it to the people we serve to try to do our best to educate them. Any other discussion or comments anyone has on anything?
Move, we stand and leave.
Commissioner Forte has made a motion to get out of here. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, and all in favor may rise. Those who want to stay here can, if you won't have a quorum.
I go to East Columbus a lot, do a referee and umpire.